So let's talk about the macro and 6 reasons why I expect stocks to rally in December. First, the Fed is set to cut rates in December, and I think maybe more importantly, QT or quantitative tightening is ending. Now, QT started on April 2nd when the Fed began to taper its balance sheet, and that is ending now more than 3 years later. And as you can see on this chart, the Fed's balance sheet has shrunk dramatically. The last time the Fed ended its quantitative tightening program was in September 2019, and that program lasted about 18 months. But let's look at the S&P 500 during that period of time. When QT ended on September 19th, you can see the S&P up until that point was in a range bound, in fact, had a pretty nasty correction, but then quickly gained around 17% over 16 trading days. So it was significant for equities once QT ended. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, as far as the Fed taking action in December, I want to start with the Bank of Japan because it looks like the odds have shifted for the Bank of Japan to actually hike rates in December. 61% odds according to Polymarket. Now that contrasts with what the Fed's planning to do. Looking at Polymarket, again, market-based odds, an 89% chance the Fed cuts in December. So we're really talking about 2 central banks pursuing different paths. But again, for U.S. equities, it's really what the Fed's going to do. And finally, with regard to the Fed, President Trump just recently said he knows who he's going to pick as Fed chair and announce it soon. I'm going to guess it's going to come around or slightly after the FOMC rate decision in December. But markets are anticipating this to be Kevin Hassett. Number 2 reason for expecting a rally in December is that the economy is still healthy. There's still plenty of pent-up demand, and the ISM manufacturing has been below 50 for 3 years. Now that is going to be updated this week for November, and housing has plenty of pent-up demand. Number 3, the government shutdown's over. We've had a blackout of economic data, and markets don't like the lack of information. That's going to have a restoration of visibility. Number 4, there's performance chasing. Investors are off sides in November because a lot of funds actually threw in the towel. They just thought the markets made the highs for the year. And already 2025 was the worst year for fund managers, with 78% trailing their benchmark through October. Number 5, stocks got oversold. And I think especially when you look at RSI. This is daily RSI for the S&P year to date, and the daily RSI fell to 35 in November. That's the most oversold it got since the April tariff lows. And as you can see on this chart, once you made those lows on the RSI in April, market began to rally pretty sharply. And lastly, it's seasonal. December usually finishes strong, and given the pullback in November, I actually think December is shaping up to be a good month. And as far as macro data this week, there's a lot. The ISM manufacturing for November comes out on Monday. On Wednesday, November ISM services. And on Friday, we get a trio of data. But the one the market's probably going to focus on most is core PCE for September. And there are some companies reporting this week that are granny shots. CrowdStrike on the large cap side. And there are 5 mid-cap grannies reporting: MongoDB, Pure Storage, UiPath, Donaldson and Company, and Samsara. Most of these are AI-related stocks. And as for individual stock performance, let me just highlight. The top 5 performers for Granny and Granny Income were Robinhood, Broadcom, SoFi Technologies, Arista Networks, and Tesla. And these are basically AI-related names. The bottom 5 are Costco, S&P Global, TJX, NVIDIA, and Deere. On the SMID side, the top 5 performers were Lumentum, Riot Platforms, Bloom Energy, IonQ, and SoFi Technologies. And the bottom 5 are East West Bancorp, Weatherford International, Watts Water Technologies, Pegasus Systems, and Qualys. And as far as themes go, I want to highlight the three that contributed most to the relative performance. The first are millennials. As you can see, it was a bigger contributor to the mid-cap portfolio. The second is the global labor shortage and AI-related stocks. And the third are energy and cybersecurity-related names.
通力认为股市在12月有反弹的4大理由：一是美联储可能在12月降息，且量化紧缩 QT 正在结束；二是经济依然健康，存在被压抑的需求；三是政府停摆结束后，市场信息会恢复透明度；四是存在业绩追赶与超卖回补的动能，再加上季节性因素，12月往往表现不错。同时要注意的是，不同央行路径不一，比如日本央行可能加息，而美联储可能降息，但总体上对美股最关键的还是美联储的政策走向。本周也有重要宏观数据，如 ISM、PCE 和一些成分股公司财报需要关注，它们可能影响短期走势。汤利说，基本面和技术面都有支持12月反弹的理由，但要密切跟踪即将公布的数据和央行动向。